we stopped off and bought this cafe latte.
You take a sip?
Yes, I did.
Now, when you took a sip, did you notice it was hot? Were you able to sip it in your normal fashion?
No, I wasn't able to sip it in my normal fashion.
You get me one coffee drinker on that jury, you gonna walk out of there a rich man.
Over the years, the infamous McDonald's hot coffee lawsuit has become associated with a supposed epidemic of frivolous lawsuits in the United States.
Now she claims she broke her nose on the sneeze guard at the Sizzler, bending over looking at the chickpeas.
But most of what you've probably heard about that epidemic and the case itself isn't true, and is only a fraction of the piping hot coffee there is to spill. So today, we're going to take a look at the notorious McDonald's hot coffee lawsuit of the 1990s. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know what other famous fast food controversies you would like to hear about. Okay, proceed with caution because the beverage you're about to enjoy may be hot. On February 27, 1992, 79-year-old Stella Liebeck ordered a coffee at the drive-thru window of a McDonald's in Albuquerque, New Mexico, like so many of us have done, although not necessarily in New Mexico. The car had no cup holders. Oh, must have been an Accord, so Liebeck held the coffee between her legs while she tried to add cream and sugar to it. Unfortunately, when she tried to remove the lid, she spilled the coffee all over her lap. Who among us has never done that dance? However, Liebeck added a new step when she sued McDonald's and offered to settle the case for $20,000. Without any context, that might sound a little ridiculous. Really? 20 G's for spilling a cup of coffee on yourself? What do you charge for dropping your fries? To many at the time, it sounded like a frivolous attempt to score some dough. And that certainly seemed to be how McDonald's felt. Rather than cut Liebeck a check for 20 grand, they instead offered her a one-time payment of $800. Now, you might be wondering, if the case was so ridiculous, why did McDonald's pay her anything? Well, what do you expect from a company run by a clown? At least, we assume Ronald is in charge. You'll have to pry that company from his cold, dead gloves. So the reason McDonald's made Liebeck a counteroffer is because the case was a lot more serious than it seemed, but as you're about to hear, $800 wasn't going to cut it. You see, when Liebeck spilled that coffee on her lap, she was wearing highly absorbent sweatpants, which soaked up the hot liquid and spread it all over her thighs, buttocks, and, major ouch, her groin. She incurred third-degree burns over 6% of her body, and it sent her into a state of medical shock. She was quickly taken to a hospital where she would undergo a painful 8-day course of skin graft treatments. But despite this care, she was permanently scarred and even partially disabled for years after the incident.
I was burned so severely that they didn't think I would live.
In other words, she was not loving it. Okay, you probably heard those details and wondered what the hell McDonald's puts in their coffee. The truth is, no normal cup of coffee could have possibly caused the level of injuries Stella Liebeck sustained. After all, the average person spills coffee on themselves pretty regularly, and it almost never requires hospitalization, except for that time we knocked over Gary's espresso machine. Well, in the course of the subsequent lawsuit, Liebeck's attorneys discovered that McDonald's coffee was kept between 180 and 190 degrees Fahrenheit as a matter of company policy. That was significantly higher than the coffee temperatures of many McDonald's competitors, and for reference, is just 20 or so degrees south of boiling. Tests even showed that when kept this hot, coffee could cause third-degree burns in just 3 to 7 seconds. Hey, it'll wake you up on your morning drive. McDonald's claimed that their customers preferred coffee to be extremely hot when purchased at a drive-thru because they didn't intend to drink it until they reached their destination. But Liebeck's lawyers found that McDonald's own research actually showed customers typically intended to drink their coffee immediately while driving. You know, like every single person you've ever seen at a drive-thru. So McDonald's wasn't exactly killing it in the credibility department. Speaking of driving, despite the strong evidence that McDonald's was at fault, or at the very least being reckless and shady like the bad guys in Good Burger, the public tended to see the lawsuit as frivolous. And part of the reason for that was the perception that Liebeck had caused her own injuries by driving while drinking coffee. But this was not the case. Liebeck was actually a passenger in the car, which was being driven by her grandson when the injury occurred. What's more, the car wasn't even moving. Her grandson had parked so she could add cream and sugar before she accidentally spilled the coffee. It's unclear whether she managed to add enough cream and sugar to actually make it taste like anything. McDonald's wasn't looking so great to begin with, but the trial got significantly worse for them after one of their own quality assurance managers testified in court. The employee confirmed that the company required coffee to be kept around 185 degrees Fahrenheit and that any food kept above 140 degrees Fahrenheit creates a potential burn hazard. You're getting into Hot Pockets territory there. McDonald's own employees weren't the only ones causing them headaches. 2 expert witnesses also struck major blows against McDonald's during the case, those being the chairman of the Department of Mechanical Engineering at the University of Texas and a leading burn expert and the editor-in-chief of the scholarly publication Journal of Burn Care and Rehabilitation. Both confirmed the heat of McDonald's coffee was downright dangerous for consumers. We imagine it was somewhere around this point they began to wish they had just paid Liebeck the $20,000. During the trial, some other disturbing facts came out regarding McDonald's coffee. For example, it was revealed that from 1982 to 1992, McDonald's received over 700 complaints about their coffee's temperature. And it wasn't just a case of 700 people saying they thought the coffee was too hot. These complaints were all related to intense burns, often burns similar to the ones Liebeck sustained. You think you've heard the worst of it, but like an extra value meal, there's more grease in this bag. As it turns out, it wasn't just grown men and women getting burned by Mickey D's piping hot Java. There had even been numerous cases of children receiving coffee burns as well. Even worse, those burns were often due to McDonald's employees accidentally spilling the coffee themselves while serving guests. It's not really something they wanted to advertise, and in their defense, "It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's" is a much better slogan than "We'll scald your face like a gangster in a Batman movie." It became pretty apparent that Liebeck's case was not an isolated incident. McDonald's had been well aware of the problem for quite some time, but had taken no measures to correct it. Come on guys, at least toss some ice cubes in the pot. The bottom line was that the testimony proved McDonald's knew the coffee was way too hot. The employee went a step further and said that McDonald's coffee, when initially poured, was not safe for human consumption as it would burn the mouth and throat. Since the coffee was intended to be consumed by humans, that was bad. So you're probably wondering what McDonald's defense could have possibly been beyond just saying, "Whoops, our bad, here's a bunch of money for your pain." Well, Mickey D's tried to defend itself by claiming customers were technically warned about the coffee's extremely hot temperatures by a statement on the side of the cup. However, as was quickly pointed out, the placement of the statement on the side of the cup, where it was likely to be missed, was a questionable choice. After all, how many people read the sides of their coffee cup while they drive around? I mean, unless traffic is really boring that day. Obviously, it would make more sense to put the warning on the top of the cup where customers would look just before taking a sip. But that's not what McDonald's did. Geez, does it cost more to put it on the lid, or are they just committed to the bit? The jury reached a verdict in Liebeck's favor and awarded her an astronomical $2.7 million in punitive damages. But that amount of the punitive damages, they declared, was quickly reduced by the judge to a far more down-to-earth sounding $480,000. It's tempting to assume the judge was in the pocket of big business or something like that, but this was no indication the judge was siding with McDonald's. In fact, he soundly condemned McDonald's, calling the corporation reckless, callous, and willful. You forgot delicious.
Do you wish to confess?
Yes, Father. I'm guilty.
Eventually, after pretty much everyone already knew and it was clear they were caught, witnesses from the McDonald's Corporation admitted they had known the risks surrounding the coffee's temperature for over 10 years and that consumers were not adequately informed. When asked why the public was not made aware of the dangers of their coffee, McDonald's representatives never really offered a satisfactory explanation. They also claimed to have had no plans to reduce the temperature of their coffee in the future. So basically, they were saying they had no idea why they let it happen, but they were happy to let it happen again. Thanks, Ronald. Despite the perception that she was in it for the money, Stella Liebeck wasn't looking to drag McDonald's through the dirt or trying to get her moment in the spotlight. The truth is, she never wanted the national attention and never even wanted to go to court at all.
I was not in it for the money. I was in it because I wanted to bring the temperature down.
Additionally, Liebeck never once blamed the spill itself on McDonald's. She took full responsibility for handling the coffee poorly. However, she believed the coffee was dangerously hot because it absolutely was. And she argued that had the coffee been kept at a reasonable temperature, instead of hot enough to sterilize surgical equipment, the spill would have been a minor inconvenience instead of an incident that caused severe burns. And the science agreed with her. Studies showed that when coffee is served at 160 rather than 180 or 90 degrees, it takes 20 seconds to produce a burn, almost 3 times as long. That time could be used to get the hot liquid away from the skin, either by grabbing some towels or just removing your pants if the situation permits it. In other words, if Liebeck's coffee was served at 160 degrees, McDonald's would probably have never heard of her. People often assume that Liebeck won a massive payday. And to be fair, McDonald's did ultimately end up offering a settlement that was a whole lot more than $800, or even the $20,000 that she originally sought. Since Liebeck was concerned about the award being overturned during the appeals process, she accepted the offer. The precise details of the settlement have never been fully revealed to the public, but it's believed she received less than $600,000. In 2011, former lawyer Susan Saladoff released a documentary about the case called Hot Coffee. The film debuted at Sundance and later aired on HBO. Critics lauded the work, and The Hollywood Reporter called it a scalding documentary on tort reform that should stir up your blood pressure faster than a triple espresso. Finally, someone burned McDonald's. As of this writing, McDonald's policy is to serve its coffee between 174 and 194 degrees, but that's not out of line with the norm these days. Starbucks, for example, serves its coffee between 175 and 185 degrees, which is pretty toasty. McDonald's has at least added a stronger warning to their coffee cups. You know, assuming you can actually read it. So what do you think? Was this a frivolous lawsuit, or was McDonald's in the wrong? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Our Weird History.